everybody, Dylan from the Smart Economy podcast. We're on day 3, the final day at Consensus 2024, and we're joined by the CEO of COZ, Tyler Adams. How's it going, Tyler?
Pretty good. It's been a really good event. It's interesting not doing like a booth footprint and having to work that. So it's kind of cool. We've gotten to walk around and do some BD and explore different projects.
So this year you're doing more of like a guerrilla type activation campaign. So for the folks who might not have listened to the Twitter spaces we did earlier today on the Smart Economy podcast Twitter page, can you just kind of give us like an overview, higher level, like objective of what the chip campaign is and who the partners are?
Sure. So this year we decided to do kind of as you mentioned, a guerrilla campaign. We wanted to try a new product concept out. So we attached our technology to a bunch of apparel, like this COZ shirt. You can see the button here. And when we attach it and bind it on chain, it makes it effectively one of the most counterfeit-proof physical assets on Earth. And then we partnered with a number of organizations, so COZ, obviously, Item Systems, which manufactures and produces these the buttons and the NFI tech. Smart Economy Podcast, if you're listening to this, you know who Smart Economy Podcast is. And then also Waxman, which is one of the most reputable PR firms in this space. So each team has these shirts, and then if you scan or interact with somebody from each team, then you can enter to win a new iPad.
Mm-hmm. And so something that I thought was really cool is that the people who do indeed tap the shirts get really jazzed and excited, and they want to go collect the other ones. But this is also kind of a Waxman-led initiative because they're the ones with the booth, they're the ones who are having people come in, so they're the ones who are like, hey, come tap this. So what's it like kind of throwing this technology into the wild and relying on a partner that you're not manning the booth to kind of drive the activation? Are you wishing you had a little bit more involvement? Are you kind of like excited to see the baby fly from the nest and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, we like watching stuff like fall apart miserably in general, so we like to build out new technologies and then throw them into the wild and then learn from it, right? That's what we've been doing really with this technology for the past 12 months, right? Mm-hmm. We do like every month a new kind of product concept. We throw it out and we try to understand like as much as we can about the technology and the ecosystem and the way that people interact with it. So this was, for us, a really good opportunity to provide it to a third party and then watch how that interaction works, right? When we're not actively like managing it and doing like the back of house work and all of that, right? Like we basically gave them apparel and then left. Right, and they have our contact information for support and stuff, but we're trying to kind of monitor it as remotely as possible. So that's kind of the next step. So it's pretty exciting. I think it's gone pretty well. They seem to get it. I think the workflow is starting to get to a point with the technology where it's intuitive for people. And again, like with the rings last year, no blockchain knowledge required.
So I think what is really interesting about where COZ's gone with the NFI tech is it's become conference agnostic. This has been featured at ETH Denver as part of a side event at Consensus 2022, 2023, and 2024, also at Paris Blockchain Week. So what are the conversations like with other types of conferences or maybe even other types of ecosystems that are interested in leveraging this technology for their types of events? Are you noticing kind of traction with people who are recognizing the name brand of COZ and the type of technology that you can offer them?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest compliment we're receiving is like at the events where we go to, like hearing that the conference is not the same if we aren't without us bringing the technology and the interactive experiences. Mm-hmm. We also, when we talk to people on the ground, the reputation precedes us, which is really nice to hear. We've had we've had three conferences, new conferences that we have never attended that knew about us by reputation before we had entered the call. And then here on the ground, it kind of becomes a discussion where when we walk up, we say, were you here last year? Were you at any of these other conferences? oh, did you get a ring, for example, and then that immediately kickstarts the conversation for us. So I think all of the hard work on the engineering side and actually like doing that up front has kind of differentiated us a little bit, and that's a little unique as well, since the like common business strategy, like what's recommended when you go to like school and actually is like supported in industry, is like to sell the concept first.
Yeah.
And for us, we understood the industry and we built the product. And that's starting to show up here because we actually have the thing we can proliferate.
Right, and so like a lot of this technology was, for lack of better term, seeded by Neo. We were leveraging the NFIs at Consensus 2023 and at ETH Denver. The beers that could be redeemed from tapping the Denver Walls plaques were all done on chain. Are other ecosystems and blockchain networks starting to like notice this and reach out to you and talk to you about potentially integrating this technology on top of them? And can the NFI chips be integrated on top of other blockchains?
Yeah, so the technology is protocol agnostic, so it can sign and interact with any, and it's actually blockchain native as well. So any platform that supports like ECC or elliptic curve cryptography, and actually any product that can support that for verification can use the technology. There's just a smart contract stub that has to exist, so obviously there's some requirements there. But yeah, we've had a lot of interest. I think a lot of the other ecosystems are especially interested in like the experiential component, because as we've kind of seen at this event, like a lot of the booths are very sterile. They're staffed with BD and sales and their brochures, so people aren't actually like reaching out and touching and engaging with the technology. And I think that's something that our team is really focused on. Like we've spent 7 years building out the technology from the ground up, so like we can deliver these like custom tailored experiences and we feel relatively confident being able to deliver that with pretty much any platform. So there's a lot of interest in that. With the NFI technology, there's also a lot of interest within the industry, like at large. It's one of the hurdles that we're running into is explaining what it is, because I think on this space, because it's so software driven, in most cases the only exposure to hardware that people have is like a ledger, or like a hardware wallet in general. So explaining that this is hardware that's not like a wallet, it can be a wallet, but it's not a wallet, like inherently that's not its only purpose, is really confusing. So trying to work on that, like the education component, is really critical.
Yeah, and so last year, actually, as a result of Consensus, we were able to partner with Denver Walls, who saw our booth, and one of the things that they really appreciated is the flexibility that COZ offers in terms of doing things completely on-chain or doing things in a manner that doesn't necessarily touch the blockchain, depending on the needs of the partner, customer, client, whatever you want to call the other side of the partnership. So for this event, what processes, if there are any, are on-chain?
So what we're doing right now, so we collect all the signatures, we authenticate them. They do get burned on-chain to verify the authenticity, and that's kind of the main component that we're leveraging this time around. And that's actually one of the big differentiators with like the stuff we do with Denver Walls, for example. Like people often say like, well, why don't you just do a QR code or something like that, or a basic NFC, like an RFID chip that you buy off of Amazon where you can tap scan it, right? I think the issue with using that technology for a lot of these types of activations is they can be spoofed, right? Like you can interact with it and then send it to 1,000 people, and then they all get the benefit of what you did. That kind of, it's like proof of presence, I guess, or experience. I don't know what we would want to call it. Maybe you can coin a term for us to put you on the spot. But that's something that's kind of unique with this, and that's also something that the blockchain allows us to do completely like decentralized, right? The chain can authenticate and assert the authenticity of the actual experience and the interaction that somebody had with the physical asset. So that's something that we're leveraging in this activation, and something we leverage in every activation we do.
Nice. Before we do a quick walkthrough of what the activation looks like for this event, I do really quickly want to ask you again, because we did bring this up on the spaces earlier this morning, what's like the vibe that you're feeling on the ground here at Consensus 2024? We've been here at this event for 3 years, and we've also just been attending multiple blockchain events together since 2018. So where are we at in the space right now? And is the vibe that we're getting in the broader blockchain space in the US, is that well represented at this event?
I think it is. I think we're seeing, because of the timing, right? So there was a lot of stuff that came out about US regulatory guidance and oversight in the last 2 weeks. There's a lot of uncertainty with that as well. And this event happened like the week after that, right? And I don't think we're really recognized, at least on the floor, there's been time for like that to show up here. I think it's really showing up in the energy levels and the motivations and excitement within the guests, right? So when we walk around and we talk to people, the general community here seems much more optimistic than they were last year. Last year, like, it was almost the opposite. Like, there were a ton of boosts, there was a lot of energy, but the sentiment was kind of negative, right? The outlook was negative. Here, it's almost the opposite. Like, we have a ton of people here. Their sentiment is positive, but there's like less energy at a booth and like an experiential level within the event. I don't know. Personally, I suspect that's because of the regulatory uncertainty, at least within like the sponsorship component. I also speculate that that's driven by some of these like side events that are starting to go on, and that's something we also saw at ETH Denver, where now we're seeing that like the conferences are starting to decentralize in a lot of ways, right? You have these all-day side events where they have their own panels and they have their own booths and things like that. So it's been kind of interesting to watch the general blockchain conference scene evolve.
Yeah, I agree. I have all of my own opinions on the pros and cons of the decentralization away from the main event, but this is about you and the technology that you worked on, so I'll pipe down a little bit. I do want to show the viewers the Smart Economy podcast shirt that I was wearing the other day. This is sweaty and stinky, so I'm not wearing it today. But this was the front and back, and on the left arm we had the chip embedded, and this is one of the 4 waypoints that a conference attendee could tap into in order to enter the contest to win an iPad Air. So can you just walk us through briefly what the activation would look like for somebody who was just walking up to me and tapping this?
Yeah, so you can see I have one here. So I'm going to grab my phone and not reveal the unlock code like I've done in the past 2 years, or actually for every conference activation that we've done.
3rd time's a charm.
Yeah, well, it's like the 5th time, I think, now. All right, so somebody would walk up and you tap scan it. And it's going to go through our app store. And then it's going to say, you've successfully scanned the Smart Economy Podcast NFI. And what this is doing is it's collecting a unique assertion from the chip that's embedded on the shirt, right? And then here we have information about the Smart Economy Podcast. There's a description of it. There are all of the socials and how to reach out to get involved with the project. And then there's also a link to the registry, which is kind of an explorer for cryptographically authentic physical assets. Okay, and then once you close off that information, you can see the event, right? So we have win a new iPad Air, find out how, and then you have your waypoints. And you'll notice I have 3 of the 4 waypoints scanned now. I have the item systems, the Waxman, Smart Economy Podcast, and COZ, and there's a check mark next to 3 of them. Once you complete all of those, then you get a form to enter to basically participate in the raffle for the iPad Air. And then those signatures end up going on chain to check the authenticity once you submit, to verify that you actually can do it. They're valid signatures, basically. They haven't been spoofed.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to see that we can leverage in-person events to drive traffic for on-chain activity.
Right.
So yeah, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us. You've been running around this entire trip, getting these, making sure they're right. You've been doing BD on behalf of COZ, chatting with folks who were here at previous Consensus. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today about the tech.
Always, I love your podcast.
And for anyone who wants to see any of the other interviews we've done here at Consensus 2024, head over to the Neo News Today YouTube page. You'll be able to find all the recorded live in-person events, conversations. And if you want to hear any of the full episode podcasts that we've done, head over to www.smarteconomypodcast.com.